Welcome back to Horn Takes, your Texas football and baseball talk destination. I am your host, Sean Redfern. It is Longhorn Friday. We are excited about that. We love all Fridays. We are weekend people at the Horn Takes podcast. Me and my wife, she has absolutely nothing to do with the podcast except she supports me completely. I mean, oh, you need to watch this? You need to rewatch that game? That's fine. Do that. I support you, babe. She takes pictures of me next to all my crap and tells people I'm going to be famous. She thinks I'm famous. It's awesome. We'll roll with it. We're weekend people. Friday night, we're team amming if we're in town. If we're not in town, we're going someplace nice to eat dinner. And then on Saturdays, we're going to drink all day. We're going to be out by the patio, out in the pool, out by the fire, someplace nice, having drinks, watching college football during college football season. We love us some weekends. If every day was a weekend and we could get paid, we're so good at weekends, we would be like bazillionaires. So we're excited the weekend's here. We are not headed down to Austin. We kind of kicked around the idea. When I say we, I mean me. I refer to myself as we a lot because there's no I in team. Promise I'm not that crazy. I kind of am. I don't think I'm schizophrenic. My wife hasn't mentioned it, so my kids haven't mentioned it. Nobody that I know has mentioned that they feel like I'm schizophrenic. So when I say we, I'm really not talking about two separate Seans. Well, it kind of drunk Sean, normal Sean. Maybe that's it. I don't know. It doesn't matter. We're going to do 4 keys and a prediction today, and we are not going to be in Austin on Saturday, unfortunately. I would love to get down there. Just too much going on with the holidays coming up, and just got too much going on. I can't make it work. So you guys will have to enjoy it for me. I know you guys will. Check us out on Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube at Horn Takes. If you just like to listen to podcasts, man, Apple Podcast, iHeart Podcast, Spotify Podcast, all the podcast joints have Horn Takes Podcast. So check us out there. Or you can go to your browser and type in horntakespodcast.buzzsprout.com. All the episodes there in audio format. If you like the videos, you can check us out on TikTok, obviously. Go over to YouTube. Just search Horn Takes Podcast in the little search bar, which I don't know why I'm telling you guys. If you're watching this right now, you're on YouTube. But if you're listening right now, go to the little search bar, go to YouTube, and search for Horn Takes Podcast. And then you get to see everything I'm talking about when we do these video analyses. 4 keys and a prediction for this Kentucky game on Saturday. Going back to before the season started, I I thought this Kentucky game was a game that had trap written all over it. Sandwiched between 2 renewed rivalry games in Arkansas and Aggie. Kentucky's always one of those teams that, and usually they're a little better than they are this year. Usually they're not this bad. And I'll caveat that I don't think they're that bad. They just don't have a good record. But usually they're a team that sneaks up and bites somebody's ass. They've done that once this year already. They're kind of like the Texas Tech of the SEC. It's kind of what I sort of describe them as. How like that's their role in the SEC to me. Kind of not good enough to win anything on their own, but they figure out a way at least once a season to fuck up somebody else's season. So as you look at this little 3-game stretch at the end of the season, this Kentucky game, prime trap game for me. You just went on the road to Arkansas. You played a pretty tough game there, man. I mean, 20-10, comfortable. But this game was a 3-point game in the fourth quarter. If you weren't drinking heavily on Saturday and you were watching Texas play Arkansas, you probably had some anxiety going. I started drinking beer at like 9:30, 10 o'clock that morning to prepare for what I knew was coming. So by 2 o'clock that afternoon, I was all right. But still, it was a nerve-wracking ending to that game. This Kentucky team has a terrible record, but they've played close games with everyone except for South Carolina and Florida. And in both of those games, their offense was so bad and turned the ball over so much that it led to them sort of getting blown out. They've only given up over 30 points twice this season. In both those games, South Carolina and Florida. They almost beat Georgia. They did go on the road and beat Ole Miss. They had respectable losses to Vandy, Auburn, and Tennessee. Like, they didn't get run out of the building. To me, they're like one of those teams that's just kind of a few plays away from maybe the story of this season being a lot different for them. I think they're like a scarier version of Vanderbilt. Kentucky's got to have a better roster than Vanderbilt, right? 4 keys: prioritize the running game. Last week against Arkansas, we saw that 3 down front, those 3 high safeties, almost the entire game. Texas was able to run the ball against that look effectively. We already talked about the numbers earlier this week on the after action review. You can go see them on Twitter. This team can run the football. It certainly did against Arkansas, but you have to commit to it. You have to do it consistently enough to get them out of those types of looks. You get them out of those types of looks, then you can go have success through the air. Got a news flash for Texas fans and for the Texas coaching staff that won't listen, and that's fine. Listen, I'm not trying to say I'm smarter than the Texas. They're not letting you throw deep. It's not going to happen. They don't want you to throw the ball. And they're going to do anything they can do to keep you from throwing the ball, including selling themselves out to keep you from being able to throw the ball while simultaneously giving you rushing yards. If you don't take them and get them out of that look, you're not going to be able to throw the ball. The answer to a 3 down lineman look and 8 guys playing in zone coverage with 3 of them deep is not keep throwing the ball way down the field and hoping something changes. Another bit of sad news for Texas fans. Kentucky showed a lot of this same look against Ole Miss, which was their only SEC win. And guess what the score of that game was? It was 20-13 or 20-17 or something like a low scoring game. They did the same thing to Ole Miss that Arkansas did to Texas. Arkansas just could not score, and Kentucky could. That's the difference. They're going to show that look and similar looks. They don't do it exactly the way Arkansas did it, but you're going to see that same type of stuff because that's the only shot they have at slowing Texas down. If they try to sell out and stop the run and play, or even play normal nickel coverages, if they can't get pressure, Texas will absolutely shred them. And I hope that's what they do. I hope I'm completely wrong and Kentucky is like, no, man, we're not going to do that. We're going to go nickel. And we're gonna be just plain Jane nickel on y'all, like everybody else does across the country almost every single Saturday. If they do that, Texas might win this game by 50, but I just don't think that's gonna happen. They have the game plan for slow down the deep passing game and slow down the good passing offense. Slow down the guy that just refuses to run the football consistently. They've got that game plan. They rolled it out against Ole Miss and it worked. So that's the game plan. Kentucky is the 54th ranked rushing defense in the country. They give up 133 yards per game on the ground. Not terrible. Not real good either. And it's certainly this defense's weakness. And they don't have a lot. This is a good defense. I don't know how the injuries are going to affect them. They've got some key guys out. They got a linebacker out. They've got one of their big guys in the secondary out. We've talked about how they're all 6 foot or higher. A couple of them are 6'3". One of those guys out. I don't know what that means for them necessarily. I doubt they have a ton of depth. But nonetheless, you could still put bodies back there and just be like, don't get ran past. Whatever you do, don't let anybody run past you. And when you get a chance to make a tackle, make a tackle. There's a lot of people with that kind of ability. So if Texas wants to have a big time home win with a comfortable lead and everybody's happy in the fourth quarter and everybody's playing, Arch is handing it off 78 times in the fourth quarter, you're going to have to prioritize the running game in the first and second quarter against Kentucky. Key number 2, no big plays defensively. This Kentucky offense is not that good. I don't think they do anything particularly well. And certainly not consistently. Like they can't just line up and do things consistently up and down the field. But they got a veteran QB. He's got a pretty big arm. And they got some big guys on the outside. Talked about Dane Key. He's 6'3", 210 pounds. He's a big target, can jump, physical guy. He's one of those types you can just get the ball out there. He can go get it for you. They're pretty multiple in the running game. Vandegrift is going to run it. You're going to see a bunch of different looks to the running backs. There's going to be zone looks, power looks, speed option even. You're going to see the Wildcat with the backup quarterback, who, again, I'm going to call it the Wildcat. I don't care if it's the backup quarterback. It's the Wildcat because Vandegrift stays in the game, and the dude just keeps it. He doesn't do anything but keep it. And he's wildly athletic. We've seen this Texas running defense be leaky at times. Leaks turn into floods. Or in this case, big plays. This Kentucky Wildcat offense, if it's going to get anything done against Texas, it is going to be through big plays. They're just not built to move the ball up and down the field methodically. And they've been able to hit some big plays. Notably, the 4th and 7 at Ole Miss that set them up for that game-winning touchdown. 4th and 7, he sees man coverage. He pulls his big boy pants on and throws the ball down the field. Receiver makes a play on the ball. They get way down into Ole Miss territory, score a touchdown, win the game. Nick Saban says big plays and turnovers are the 2 biggest factors in determining the outcome of a game. And honestly, to be fair, probably a lot of coaches say that, and probably a lot of fans say that, but he's the GOAT, and I'm going to quote him. Don't let an advantage you have be something that gets you beat. We have talked about that so many times on this show this year. Texas does not give up big plays. Saturday would be an absolute terrible time for that to not be true. No big plays, Texas. Key number 3, keep taking the ball away. This Kentucky offense ranked 92nd in the country in turnovers. They got 16 of them. Texas defense, one of the best in the country at taking the ball away. They're ranked 6th in the nation with 22 takeaways. I think this is the type of game, much like that Arkansas game, where Texas is going to need all the offensive series they can get. And again, for this Kentucky offense, when they turn the ball over, they get blasted. Their game has got to be complimentary, and it's got to be grinded out, tough nature. They start losing the ball and giving the ball over to the other team. That defense has to play too long. Kentucky's in trouble. They're not that kind of team. I don't think Texas has to take the ball away necessarily. But the flip side of that is they can't just keep giving it to Kentucky either. So maybe this should have been protect the ball or keep, I don't know what the hell. We're going to say keep taking the ball away. That is Texas's best shot at making this a blowout. Key number 4, be big up front offensively. This is one of those, to me, just big time, just be better up front games for this Texas offensive line. We've seen them go places before in the last 2 years and just be better. We saw them go to Alabama last year and do it. The Texas offensive line was just better than Alabama up front last year in Tuscaloosa. They were just better than Michigan up front this year up in Ann Arbor. They were just better in the Cotton Bowl against that Oklahoma Sooner defense at the Red River Shootout. They can do it. Hell, they were better. They were better than Arkansas. We just didn't let them be better than Arkansas. The Kentucky team, 23 sacks on the season. They get good movement up front. And the zone coverages they run behind that stuff forces the quarterback to just kind of work through reads, which gives those guys more time to get to the quarterback, which leads to sacks. They're really good at it. This offensive line got to give Quinn Ewers time to find guys in all these zones and give him a clean enough pocket to make some throws. And folks, this is a really big if Sark does try to run Kentucky out of those types of looks early, the O-line needs to be up to the challenge. They need to move that big Kentucky front around. Need to make space for those running backs. Sark does not have the patience for 4 and 5 yard runs. I don't know why. He just does not. He's demonstrated it over and over and over again. I'm done trying to figure it out. I'm just going to say it happens, and I'll continue to say it happens till it doesn't happen. Texas is going to have to bust some long runs for Sark to stay with the running game. And for that to happen, that offensive line is going to have to eat up front. So if you're a Texas offensive lineman this week, this is the type of game you should love. You're going to get challenged, but you're going to have numbers. Just go kick some people's ass. If they come out there in that 3-man front in a dime look with one linebacker or even a 2-backer look, which they do sometimes in that 3-man front, that's still 5-on-5. Let's get a hat on a hat. Let's move some ass, and let's get some running lanes going. Prediction. We've talked about it over and over again. Kentucky has employed that exact same defensive game plan to beat Ole Miss that Arkansas used against Texas so successfully last week. Put a lot of bodies in the back end to limit the throwing lanes. Just kind of dare you to run the football. And again, that is exactly what I expect Kentucky to do because that's exactly what they did against Ole Miss. I don't know how maybe not having Derek Anthony, one of those inside linebackers, out. I don't know how not having DJ Waller, one of their DBs, out will affect that. I just can't imagine it will. Despite all the one game at a time talk, I think Texas is going to have a slight case of we just won a close game last week on the road at a rival's house. We have to go on the road to play another rivalry game next weekend against possibly a top 10 team. I expect a slow start offensively. I expect the offense to be slow all day. Slow and frustrating. That's the way it was against Vandy. That's the way it was against Georgia. That's the way it was up in Arkansas. Unless the defense just keeps giving them the ball, this Texas offense is going to struggle. I think Mike Stoops going to have these Wildcats ready to go on the road again against another highly rated team with the sole intent of absolutely derailing their season. I think in the end, this is a game that Texas controls defensively, but they struggle offensively to score, and it's going to be a lot closer than it should be. I got Texas 27-13 over Kentucky. We'll see how it turns out. I had a big blowout against Arkansas. Granted, I didn't expect Arkansas to play that type of defense against Texas. And man, if Mike Stoops doesn't do that against Texas, like he should probably just not be able to get back on the plane. The only time Texas has been slowed down the last 2 seasons is by a 3-high look. And if you're the quarterback, you just look up and you just see dudes with the wrong jersey everywhere. That is the only time Texas has gotten slowed down offensively. There's 4 keys and a prediction for this Kentucky game. We'll be back on Sunday. We'll have Drunk Sean thoughts. You'll find us on Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube at Horn Takes. Give us a subscribe. Give us a follow. Won't cost you guys a thing, but we sure do appreciate the support. You can email me at horntakespodcast@gmail.com with all your questions, comments, concerns, and criticisms. I love them all. Hey, if you're headed down to Austin, y'all be safe. Have a good weekend. Be loud. Represent. Don't throw bottles on the field if shit doesn't go right. You guys get hooked.